This is Terry at Sirius, and this is app note 320. And in this app note, we're going to talk about a interesting way of doing page management that we haven't talked about before. It's a little more advanced, but once you get your head wrapped around that, it's actually one of the nicest ways of managing your pages. So we've talked in previous app notes about how to create your own enumerated type and have a page variable. We're going to do something similar, but it's going to be a lot easier to work with. So let's do a new project for, let's say, the 231, and we're going to do a minimal project. We're going to start with something very, very small. We'll call this AN0320 here. Okay, now what we're going to do, and it comes up with the basic splash page, and this is using SHIPTide 50127, so we now have little page thumbnails here, which are really handy instead of those tabs. So we have a splash page, and that's it. And of course, when we light up, it's visible true, so we've got one page set. Now, in the past, let's create a new page, add new page, and let's call this pmain. And we'll create one more page, add new page, and we'll call this pinfo. All right, now we've got 3 pages in our GUI. These ones are empty. You can see it's just a blank background. We're gonna, let's just put some background color on there so we know which ones we're talking about. That one's purple, and then we'll add a background color here, BG color, and we'll make that one red. Okay, so we've got pinfo, pmain, and psplash now. And they're just empty pages. Now, when we go to the home page, we may want to transition to the main page. Let's say just based on a touch. So let's just add a standard touch listener to the page. Add listener, and we're going to add a macro for this soon. Touch, we're listening to touch0.event.e. Okay, and the condition that we're going to listen to here, let's move this over, is touch0.event.e equals touch.down. Okay, so that's a touch listener waiting for a touchdown anywhere on the page. We could put it inside the logo, and now it's waiting for a touchdown specifically inside the logo box. Now, we're going to add a script, a listener script pair, to each of these pages so that each page becomes visible in a condition. Now, we still have, let's add a variable. We'll call it page. We'll make it of type integer, and we'll give it an initial value of -1, let's say. That's fine. And we'll move it up to the top, right here. Okay, and now we're going to add those generic listeners to each page. Now, this is where it gets a little more interesting. We're going to listen to the variable page, just like we normally do. So whenever the variable page changes, this listener is going to wake up. And inside that, we're going to add a script. Now, this script is going to be a little bit different than you may have written in the past. So let's break this down. We're going to say page.visible. In other words, I want my page, in this case I'm inside pinfo, so that's pinfo.visible, equals page, that's the variable page, the integer variable, equals, that integer equals what? Well, in the past, what we did was we created an enumerated type, and we had to map it and type its name in here. We're going to do something a little different. getChildIndex bracket page, little lowercase page. Now, let's break this statement down. This word page and this word page refer to my nearest parent page type object, which is pinfo in this case. So I could have written pinfo here, and I could have written pinfo here, but I'm leaving it generic, so it's page and page. This capital page is this variable up here. It's an integer. So it's comparing an integer to something, this function called getChildIndex of page. What is getChildIndex? It's a built-in function that says, look at this object page, which is pinfo, and tell me what the index in its parent it is. Here's the parent D0. This first item is index 0, index 1, index 2, and index 3. Logo in here is not inside the display, it's inside the page. So let's, if we compress these things, you can see it. 0, 1, 2, 3. So that function call, getChildIndex at page, is going to return at runtime the number 3. It's going to compare it against the page variable page. And if page variable is 3, this expression is true, and the page should be visible. It would make this page visible. If this expression is false, in other words, any other page number here that doesn't match my index, this is going to be false, and I'm going to disappear. So that one very nice anonymous, when I say anonymous, it doesn't have anything specific about this particular page in it, script, I can take that and I can copy it, copy, paste, and I can paste it in this one as well, paste, and I can, so I've got that little listener under each one. I'm going to move that up to the top of the page, so it's at the beginning of each page. And so what I've done is I've created this little listener that will make each page automatically visible when the page variable equals its index. So changing pages now is very interesting. This is our touch listener. Let's add our script. And the script is really simple. Page, the variable, equals getChildIndex bracket p main. So that's doing a getChildIndex of p main. By name, p main, so this is 0, 1, 2. It's going to assign 2 to the variable page. That's what that script's going to do. So when I touch this listener down, this box, when I press on it, this listener wakes up, it runs the script, and the script sets the variable page to, in this case, 0, 1, 2. When it sets to 2, the page variable changes, and all the listeners that are listening to page wake up. And they all test that expression, and that expression was, since page is 2 in this case, is 2 equal to my index, which in the case of page, p main, that's true, it'll make p main visible. In the case of, let's say, p info, this child's index of its own page is 0, 1, 2, 3. That doesn't match 2. That'll be false, and it will be invisible. So I didn't have to create an enumerated type. I didn't have to remember what numbers were what. I can just use the getChildIndex function and these anonymous references to page, and the only place I actually have to physically refer to something specific is when I actually want to go there. And I say page equals getChildIndex p main, and that is all you need to do to create a whole page navigation system. And so you can have, if I press inside the logo, I'm going to go to p main, and I can add another touch listener. I'm going to add another one just to show you something interesting here. I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to listen to a touch down, the same touch down listener, and in this case I'm going to go to p info. Now you go, wait a minute, you've got a touch listener at the page level, and you've got a touch listener at the logo box level, that one box right here, and they're both listening for touch down. This one, if this one is activated, it's going to go to the p info page. If this one is activated, it's going to go to the main page. So isn't the logo inside the bigger page, and do they both get events? How's that work? And the answer is simple. The last best touch wins. And the object has to be visible to receive touches. So if there were touch listeners in these other pages and those pages were not visible, they're not even analyzed. The events aren't even delivered. So the only events, if psplash is visible, the only listeners that will get touch events are these two. Now, when you touch in the logo area, it will match this first one because it's at the page level. And so, of course, you touched in the page, and it matches. And it says, okay, I think you're going to touch here. But then it keeps going, and it checks this one, and it says, well, you've also touched here. And this is later in the search, so it will move, it'll say, no, you may have touched the thing before, but this is the last best. And so in that algorithm, the touch will be delivered to the last best listener, which is this one here, and it will go to the p main page. However, if you hit the down button outside that logo, this will not match, because this listener inside this box is inside this box. You touched outside the box, in which case this listener doesn't apply, and this one is the last best. So you can actually come up with some very interesting techniques with listeners for your touch controller architected this way. But I'm digressing a little here. It's a fun little tip and trick. We'll probably create a separate video on how the touch controller works in more detail. But here's the point of this application note: page, the variable. When it changes, all these little listeners wake up, they run their scripts, They compare that value of that page to their current index of their parent, which is always unique. And if it's true, they make themselves visible. If it's not, they make themselves invisible. And so all you have to do to change pages is assign the variable page to the index of the page that you want to become visible. It's that simple.